You go into this job and you're thinking what you're doing is you're going to go sit down with these individuals and you're going to help them fill out a form. You go and you sit down with them and they want to tell you their story. And I found every single one of them saying, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry that, like, you know, I didn't mean to waste your time. And it's like they felt there was a need to apologize. And they're like, you must have heard this 100 times already. Everybody's story was different. And some of those stories broke my heart. Being on that front line, it was more than just filling out forms with these individuals. It was sitting down and connecting with them, letting know there was somebody there to help them, to get them through that. And I had wives standing in the kitchens at farms when I said, I can help you, just break down in tears. So it was always hard to, sometimes, I fought back tears. Sometimes I dropped a few, but it was a different experience. I didn't grasp what I was getting myself into when I applied. And emotionally, I think there wasn't a day that went by through that whole process that I didn't feel like crying at least once a day.
This is the second in a series of videos documenting the support Community Futures has provided to businesses, Indigenous communities, and not-for-profit organizations that were impacted by the 2017 wildfires in British Columbia. Much of what Community Futures has accomplished to date in assisting those that were impacted can be attributed to its focus on business and community outreach, starting with the business ambassadors that were hired by Community Futures Caribou-Chilcotin, North Caribou, and Sun Country, and extending to the outreach work and community engagement led by Community Futures of the Central Interior First Nations and Thompson Country. By going out into the communities and meeting face-to-face with business owners and community leaders, Community Futures was able to assess the impact of the wildfires firsthand and work with each business to develop strategies that would help them in rebuilding and strengthening their operations.
The first piece was the business ambassadors. So the intention of the business ambassadors, again, was to have people who go out and actually work one-on-one with businesses to help them access the resources that were out there to support them. So there's agricultural programs, there was the Red Cross program, and there was a suite of other programs that we were aware of that could help people to recover from the wildfires and start to grow their businesses again. And so the idea behind the ambassadors is that we would have people who could go out there and provide that one-on-one support and help them to access all of that existing programming. We didn't have any training dollars in the beginning. And so the biggest part of that focus ended up being helping people with Red Cross applications. And the issues really were that, one, they hadn't heard about it because there was limited marketing in regard to the programs. Two, they didn't think it was for them because it was Red Cross money, and the branding affected the ability of businesses to recognize that it made sense for them to apply for that. And three, a lot of business people just don't like filling out forms, don't know how to fill out forms, didn't know what would happen if they filled out the form, didn't have any expectations. So really, a lot of people had to be kind of dragged kicking and screaming into the process to actually make their applications. And so a big part of the first number of months with the program was really just helping people to access those existing programs, particularly the agriculture and the Red Cross programs.
What I found when we actually were out talking to people about the different programs that were available were a couple of things. One, they didn't really understand their own finances because that's what their bookkeeper did. And two, if you tried to give them more than one program at a time, they found it overwhelming. They really needed help. So to go in with a list of here's all the things the business ambassadors can do for you turned out to be too much in one visit. And so because it was too much in one visit, we started with the big things. We started with getting cash in their hand, which was the Red Cross funding, helping them with that application. Once we built relationships by visiting these people 2 or 3 times, or talking to them on the phone 2 or 3 times, these business owners, then we could start introducing some of the other programs that existed and help walk them through that one at a time.
You know, when you see a business and you see them every day and you know them and they're going on, you're having the day-to-day conversations, and a lot of these people I see in wearing my different hats, whether it's with the Chamber of Commerce or whether it's, you know, with Laughs. But then when you sit down and you start talking to them about the impact, and then they start to get emotional, and then they say, no, my business is we're about to go belly up, and you would never know. It can be quite emotional. Because it's people that you know and it's people that you care about. The flip side to that is, let's see what we can do to help you. And that's one of the most satisfying, that is the most satisfying piece, is that at least you can go in there with a solution or with a potential solution. And with the idea that we will do whatever we can do to get you back on your feet.
I covered an area between 130 mile and 70 mile. So that's how a large area, and everywhere in between. There's a lot of businesses that don't have access to good internet service. They don't have cell service. They still operate by a letter and a pen and a mailing address, right? So to reach those businesses, to access them beyond me driving to their front door, it's hard to locate all of those businesses that do need. So that is a strong challenge, as we are so spread out here. And it was about 4 months in that I really realized there was one of me and there's so many of them, and I just had to do the best I could. I believe that I reached out to just over 300 businesses total, assisted hands-on, and it goes far deeper. I did a lot of email support, but no, I didn't reach nearly all the businesses. But it's so hard to locate them beyond the storefronts in 100 Mile where you've got your signs and the business directories. There's so many home-based businesses that don't advertise. I found myself going into the 108 Building Supply, and he has a wall of business cards. And I just started pulling out business cards because unless I'm looking for a drywaller, I didn't realize how many drywallers were in the community, how many electricians are in the community. Every truck driver, every logging truck driver is their own business. Basement bookkeepers. There was no way I was going to be able to reach every single business in this community. I'm confident that a lot of them just by word of mouth, and I know I strongly encouraged the businesses I did work with is to spread the word, that a majority did apply for that support.
Reaching out to businesses to help them in the recovery effort was also critical to the support provided by Community Futures Thompson Country and the Central Interior First Nations. In Thompson Country, businesses in Clearwater and Little Fort and tourism operators in the Wells Gray Provincial Park area were hardest hit. According to a report prepared by the Thompson-Nicola Regional District, more than 2/3 of those businesses did not have business continuity or disaster preparedness plans that could have helped them recover more quickly and effectively. Community Futures Thompson Country decided to address that gap through a series of workshops that would help business owners develop their own business continuity plans.
With the Business Ambassador Program, so that's one that's been launched by the Community Futures in Ashcroft, Williams Lake, and Quesnel, where they're reaching out and communicating with businesses and making sure that they're all aware of all of the different recovery services available. And really that's such a fantastic program, because a lot of the businesses that we work with are rural, and they might not be aware of all the different recovery avenues that are out there. We wanted to take that concept and make sure that we utilize it in the best way possible for our region. And really for us, it's making sure that businesses are aware of all of the different recovery services that we're going to be promoting, and making sure that they actually attend the sessions that we're going to be putting on, because it's one thing to make sure that they're aware, but we really want people to be in person in attendance, because it's been proven business continuity planning will help businesses, and it could be to the point where it saves their business. It's not always something that's top of mind, but it's an important aspect of operating a business.
Going into communities and meeting with people face-to-face was especially important for Community Futures of the Central Interior First Nations. They cover a vast territory of small, remote communities that are often difficult to access. A team of outreach workers was hired to work with First Nations communities and individuals that were impacted by the fires. Their main focus was on helping them complete the Red Cross applications for assistance under the Cultural Livelihoods program.
You know, lots of them, they're like, oh no, I didn't lose very much. And then we sat down and we started going, okay, well, if you went hunting and you had to go and buy meat from the grocery store instead of hunt this year, and you know, your beadwork, if you missed a powwow, how much would that? So once we sat down and started adding up all of the costs, they were blown away by the amount of money that they actually did lose being displaced and evacuated. It was interesting specifically for artisans, wild harvesters, medicine and plant pickers, and they were just really, I don't know if it was humble or what, but they just were not really too interested. They thought, you know, I don't want to take away from somebody else, until I was like, well, no, let's sit down and let's look at it and see what, you know, what the loss would be. So that it was pretty much the majority of them, and lots of them were elders, and you know, you could tell that they were living on their pensions, and it was a struggle for them, like it was for everybody, but they were really really like resistant until we kept bugging them and then realized how much that the loss was.
I've probably met more people since I've become the business ambassador in this community than I've met in the 25 years prior to that. But the nice thing about it is, because I was able to enter their businesses where I was going to help them. I wasn't asking them for anything. I wanted to give them something. And I was patient, and I continued to go back to help them over and over with different programs. I've built relationships with them that are personal, but also helped build relationships that have benefited Community Futures, because every time you interact with an organization, you can tell them a little bit more about some of the services. And once they've heard that several times, they start to realize that they have a resource that some of them have never really considered accessing, but we've made it the ambassadors have made it a safe and friendly environment for people to come forward and ask for some help with some of the services that we have here.